My camera is not cooperating with me today, so we're just gonna make the best of it. Good morning. Let's see who's hanging out today in YouTube land. All right, I think we're up and running. I am simply putting some frog tape on my work surface to create a barrier. There we go. Listen to myself talk. So this is a piece of Sweet Sentiment coloring paper. And a lot of people ask me if you can watercolor on this paper. So I am going to show you a watercolor technique that works great on Sweet Sentiment paper. And I like to completely mask off the border of my paper when I watercolor, and I'm just using the grid. Now, a lot of people will do this on like a surface that rotates and stuff, and sometimes I will, but for now, I'm just gonna use my glass mat. There we go. Okay, so the watercolors I have are Daniel West, watercolors. And this is just a palette that I've made. This is actually an Altenew case. I have two of them, so they're just made by Altenew, and they hold the pans for watercoloring. There we go. So this one in here has like all of my browns and reds and oranges. It goes into purple and pink. Then I have my blues and my greens all over here. So I have that. I have swatched them all out so I know what colors they are. And then I have pre-cut my card base and my matting. So I'm going to set that aside. And then I also have just a ceramic watercolor plate and then some water. Now, the brushes that I prefer to use, this is just El Cheapo, what is it? Crafter's Choice Pro Royal and Langnickel. And this is just a big, thick brush that I can use to get my paper all wet. You can also use your sprayer to get your paper wet, either of which works. And then my favorite brushes to actually paint with are Escoda brushes. These are handmade in Spain, yeah. So they're handmade in Barcelona, and I just love them. They're Lydia Fiedler turned me on to them, and they became my favorite brushes, and there was no turning back for me. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my work surface. So not overly wet. The problem with a lot, this brush looks like it has some acrylic paint in it still. Yeah, it does. Okay, I'm not going to use that brush. It looks like it still has some acrylic paint in it, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to spritz. Okay, so I've got a good spritz on my paper. It's not totally wet, but it's also not super duper dry either. And I'm going to start with a sort of brown. So let me get kind of a mid-tone brown here. That's a little bit too light for my liking, so I'm going to come in with this one. Yep, that's a little bit better. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint a Christmas tree. So we're going to go really simple. I'm going to start with painting a trunk. Okay. Nothing beautiful here. This is just a line. Okay. I'm going to add just a couple of branches out. These will mostly get painted over, but they do add a little bit of texture in the tree. Okay. And that's about it. That's my scary Christmas tree. You guys liking that? Okay, so I've dried off my brush. Now I'm gonna grab this brush. It's much, much thinner. And I'm gonna pick up some of this old paint that's been sitting here for a couple of years now. And I'm just gonna come in and start making some brush strokes. Now where I have the most paint is obviously going to be darker. So I am going to come in with some different layers and some different colors. And oh, bless my neighbor. It looks like he's plowing our driveway or our sidewalk or something. How nice of him. Okay, so you see this doesn't take like a whole lot of super duper artistry. I am not an artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do find it fun to, ooh, that was a very scary one. I do find it fun to just kind of have the freeness of not necessarily stamping all the time, but still using your same tools. And that's part of the joy of this paper, is that you can do so many different things on it. Need a little more water to hydrate this paint some more. And you guys, this paint has seriously been sitting on this palette for, I mean, I can't even tell you how long it's been. Well over a year, I'm sure. I'm using almost the same kind of brush stroke that I would use with my Copic marker, because my Copic marker has a brush nib, so I'm using essentially that same type of brush stroke. Look at how cute that little tree is. Okay. Isn't that fun? I love it. So I'm gonna come in now with some different greens to just kind of add a little bit more. And I'm just, which I'm off the screen, so there you go. Just adding them on the side of the palette here next to my other greens so I can kind of mix them if I want to. I'm gonna dry off my brush some. Just tip, very tip and paint and add some of this green in. This is more of like a blue-green. So I'm gonna add it closer to the trunk. A little bit more water. A little bit more paint. Get a little more into this trunk. There we go. There's our cute little Christmas tree. I hope you guys really are liking that. So I'm gonna rinse off my brush. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make, and this is a little bit difficult for me because I am, again, not truly an artist. So I just dabble. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this brush. Hi, you've been so quiet. And I'm gonna take and I'm gonna draw just a wet line all the way across here. And the reason I want this to be super wet is I want the paint to bloom. So, I mean, not like you could wring out the paper wet, but just wet enough. Because I really want the paint to bloom, and I'll show you what that means. Okay, so I'm gonna take like this really soft teal color here, and I'm gonna just kind of guide it along this line. And see how it's like spreading out? That's what I really want. So because of all this water, it's gonna just naturally spread out. So I'm kind of making little hills. I want it to be a little bit darker underneath the tree. So I'm gonna add more pigment here. And I'm gonna create like a shadow. All the while letting that water do its job. The wetter it is, the more bloom there will be. And you can come in and kind of blend it out just a little bit. If you blend it out too much, add a little paint. Okay. So now that I have that, there's a couple of things that I can do. I can let it sit here and dry naturally, which honestly, that's what I recommend. But since we are not in a dry, natural environment right now, meaning we're on YouTube Live, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to take my heat gun, oops, and I'm going to knock everything over with it, and I'm going to artificially dry it some. Okay, so I haven't dried it a ton. I mean, it's still got a little bit of dampness, but that's okay. And then I'm going to find, which may take me just a second, so bear with me. I'm going to find my white acrylic paint, maybe. Okay, so I have my white acrylic paint. I really, really like the Liquitex paint. It is my favorite. And I also have my Crazy Creations glitter. Notice this is the one with the snowflake, so it's got like blue tints to it, and there's apparently some stamen in there, but that's okay. So here's my two items that I'm using. So I'm going to, right over here, I'm gonna take just a little bit of acrylic. I don't need much. I do not know what is in there. Probably from dunking my flowers last time, so don't mind me. Okay. And then I just take my Tim Holtz sprayer and I spray it a little bit. And then I take my brush and I mix it around till it's pretty much just liquid. Now with watercolor, you have to be a little bit careful of doing this, because if you have too much water on it, then what will happen is it will smear your paints. Okay, now on some of these branches, I'm gonna come in and add some snow. Now there is white watercolor paint that you can use for this and all that, but I like doing this with the acrylic because it gives it body. It stands up just a little bit more. I'm just creating like little snowbanks off to the side here. Okay, now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna splatter just a little bit. And this is not the right kind of brush to splatter with. That's why I'm working really hard at splattering. But I already have the paint on it, so. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take my glitter and I'm gonna sprinkle my glitter over my tree and my snow. I'm gonna put a fairly good amount on here, because when I pull the tape up, I'm just gonna pour it right back in here. Okay? So now, when you pull your tape up, you need to be very, very careful, and you need to pull at a very harsh angle. See the angle that I'm pulling my tape at? It helps prevent your paper from tearing. I'm gonna hit that with my knuckles and I'm gonna throw glitter everywhere. So I'm gonna not do that. Yes, the glitter just sticks to the acrylic paint as it dries. It's about now when I get to this point and I'm like, please don't rip, please don't rip, please don't rip. There we go. Okay. So I have a ton of this glitter. I'm not gonna worry about putting it back in that container. I'm just gonna tap it off right into the trash. I know, so wasteful. But it really, really brings those snowflakes to the front. It really adds that kind of snowdriftness to it by adding that glitter to it. It just gives it body. And I absolutely adore it. So, pro tip here, always cap your glitter. Second pro tip is spray your board, especially where the glitter is, to contain the mess. And then just use a tissue to wipe it all up. Wet glitter does not travel. It stays where it's at. So if you don't want glitter everywhere, just spray it with water. Okay, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna wipe out my candy cup. Now it's good to go for next time. I'm gonna put my brush away, put those brushes away. Throw my white paint back where it belongs so I can find it next time. All right, so here's our cute watercolor painted card on Sweet Sentiment cardstock. So now what I'm gonna do is this is still a little bit moist, so I know everybody's favorite word. So I'm gonna dry it a little bit more. And you can tell that it's still wet by the way it's curling. If paper is curling in a certain direction, it curls away from where it's wet. So I'm just drying both sides of it because it's still kind of curling in both directions. So see how it's curling this way? It means the back of it is still wet. Because the wet fibers have expanded. And so the dry fibers don't have anywhere to go, so they curl in. Learning all kinds of new stuff, huh? All right. So now I'm gonna grab my Barely Art glue, and I want to write something on this card, or I want to stamp something on this card, but I don't have a stamp set that says what I want it to say. So I'm gonna grab my ruler and I'm going to drop things on the floor because I do that. I'm that kind of person. Where is my micro line? Okay, so this is my Copic micro line or multi-liner. This is 0.1. I want something a little bit bigger than that. Hold on. I can't find the one that I want. Here it is. 0.3. thought I had a 0.5. I only have 0.05. That's a bummer. Oh, I'm gonna use this brown one. This is the sepia one. And so these are water and Copic proof, so it won't smear in the water. So what I'm gonna do is, you're still here with me? All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write my sentiment down here. And the reason I don't have a sentiment for this one is I wanted to write, "It's a beaut, Clark." Does anybody know what movie that's from? There we go. So now, take my glue. And again, since I'm running the heaters and it's so dry in here, dry in Idaho anyways. There we go. Gotta tell you, I love this glue. It works every time. Yep, so now I'm gonna grab my espresso and I'm really gonna adhere it. Okay, I'm gonna make sure my card opens the proper direction. And then I'm going to put this on here. Again, I have a second. Hey, Miss Joy, you missed me actually watercoloring. So there we go with that. So now, of course, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some bling. Because you know me and you know how this goes. So today I'm going to use the clear bling, and I'm gonna be much more deliberate with it than I normally am. Okay. So this is my honey bowl, and I'm gonna go large in the corner, and the Barely Art glue dries absolutely clear. It dries absolutely invisible. So once these dry, you will not see the glue underneath them. Okay, then I'm gonna go for a medium one. Just gonna grab 2 of them while I'm there. And then I'm gonna find 2 small ones. Make sure they're placed where I want them before the glue dries. Oh, turn over. There we go. Okay. And there you have it. It is from Christmas Vacation. You are right. It is. It's a beaut, Clark. And this definitely looks kind of like it definitely looks kind of like the Christmas tree he found out in the woods. So there you guys go. Proof positive that you can watercolor on Sweet Sentiment paper. A lot of people ask me this question, and I just wanted you guys to be able to know that you can watercolor on Sweet Sentiment paper, especially if you don't wet watercolor, so not a whole ton of crazy water, but enough to get the job done. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I had fun making this little Christmas card with you today. YouTube is being really picky about posting the videos, so it will post when I guess YouTube is ready for it to post. I don't know if yesterday's posted ever, but we're gonna keep on trucking. So anyways, I will see you guys all later. We're in the middle of like deep cleaning the house for Christmas. And of course it snowed outside, so my husband's outside blowing the snow to get rid of it off the sidewalks before it turns into ice. So yeah, that's super duper fun. Anyways, grab yourself a cup of coffee and enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you have not watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, you should totally do that, and you will understand the story behind this card. Oh, it did post? Well, that's good. That's really good. Thank you for letting me know that. But Elizabeth, seriously, if you haven't seen Christmas Vacation, go watch it. It is hilarious. Absolutely. So anyways, guys, I will see you all very soon. Have a wonderful weekend. Toodles.